Hey everybody, welcome to our February Oklahoma City Astronomy Club virtual club meeting. I am coming to you live from what may look like a black hole. It's just my apartment is really dark and it's cold outside. Hope everyone can hear me okay. I hope that everybody is doing well, staying warm and healthy. If I sound weird or look weird, I mean, I gave myself a haircut um, a few hours ago because it's like the pandemic time, and so that's what we do now is we give ourselves haircuts, and uh, I think I got it a little short, so that's how my day is going. Um, but yeah, we you've got a good meeting for you tonight. I see a bunch of names in chat. I wish I could see your faces, but not quite there yet, as this pandemic still seems to have us not quite able to hold our in-person events yet, and it's supposed to be like minus six net next week with like 10 inches of snow. So we don't want to see you in person anyway because it's too cold. uh we've got a speaker for you tonight. A exoplanet hunter named Phillip Scott. He is going to be joining us here in a little bit. First, I want to talk about some things. Tomorrow night was supposed to be a member night out at our observatory at Cheddar Ranch. I think we are going to go ahead and cancel that one. It's going to be real cold and real gross, so probably not going to not going to do that one. The next member night will be on March the 6th, and then March the 13th. So keep an eye on the weather around those dates if you are interested in going out to our club observatory. If you don't know what Cheddar Ranch is, it is about an hour and a half away from Oklahoma City. It is our private observing space for club members to go to and look at the sky from a darker site than they would get in most of the metro area. If you are a member of the club, then we hold these member nights, uh, usually twice a month. And club members can go out to Cheddar Ranch on those nights and look at the sky. You also can become a member of Cheddar Ranch itself, and to do that, you need to be a club member for 3 months, and then contact Bob Taylor, who I saw in chat, to join Cheddar Ranch. It is a separate fee on top of your membership fee. Um, but once you are a member of CRO, then you get a key and the gate codes and all that stuff, so you can go out there whenever you want. I see a question from Elaine in chat here. How do we become members of the club, and also want to get the kids involved? Well, right now, because of the pandemic, it is a little different. Normally, you would come to a club meeting, and then you could could join the club there. Now we have set up a online way to do that. Let me pull that up here really quick. So you can actually go to okie-tex.org/shop. And once there, you can purchase a membership there. Your first year is prorated, so I believe it's $6 right now. And that is a family membership, so you and your little ones would all be covered there. Our memberships are going to renew in a couple of months. I know that Dave yesterday or today sent out all of those emails to all of our members to where they can renew their dues via PayPal or mailing in a check. Last month we had our board meeting. Lots of stuff about CRO and lots of stuff about Okie-Tex. I actually have Mike Dennis here, who's going to be talking about Okie-Tex here in just a few minutes. But on the CRO front, we hope to get some improvements made to our scope room and to the facility and so forth. We had a bit of a write-up in our newsletter about that, which you can see at okcastroclub.com/gazette, and you can read some more about that. Okay. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but NASA is about to land something new on Mars. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but so on the 18th, NASA and their Perseverance rover are going to land on Mars, or they're going to try to land on Mars. And they've got some great things that you can see online to learn about that. If you go to nasa.gov/NASA Live, and then there's all sorts of live streams and events and stuff, and that's going to be talking about Perseverance and landing on Mars, and it's really cool, and hopefully it all goes well, and there are no problems there. Yeah, Dave just posted it in chat to be sure to check your junk mail or your spam folder to make sure you get those renewal notices. Because we use an automated system for that, sometimes spam filters like to catch those. So if you didn't get yours yet, or you don't in a day or two, then be sure to check that folder out. If you still have not gotten it after a day or two, then you can contact us at webmaster@okcastroclub.com, or just send an email to me. Really, all of this stuff, if you just want to send it to editor@okcastroclub.com, then I can make sure it gets to where it needs to go. Okay. So let me see if Mike is ready. Mike, do you want to talk about Okie-Tex? Yeah. Okay. Well, let me throw it over to Mike. and you are on the air.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll say hi to everybody. Hope everybody's inside and trying to stay warm. I'm kind of filling in for Chuck and Larry. They're both out of pocket tonight, and I told them I'd be glad to do this. And then a little bit later, I'm going to introduce our speaker tonight, since I've known him from way back in the mid 80s. So let me touch a little bit on Okie-Tex. We are planning to hold Okie-Tex this year, October 1st through the 9th. That is a Friday, begins on a Friday and ends on a Saturday. That's a little different we've been doing, but a lot of people requested that extra day to travel to get back home. Not all of us are as close as we are to the Panhandle, so we're going to try it. We were going to do it last year, of course, it got canceled. So we've made all our preparations, working on getting speakers and all that stuff. Of course, the COVID thing is, we just don't know exactly what we're going to run into, but we are planning to hold the star party with all the procedures that may be required to, keep COVID from getting transmitted, and spacing, safe spacing and stuff, even eating and programs. So we don't have everything laid down yet so that we can tell you exactly what to expect. But we're hoping, like everybody else, that these vaccines that people are trying to get and will give us a shot at having the Okie-Tex this year. We sure missed not getting to have it last year. And so we're looking very much forward to getting to do this. We built a new building up there. It's standing and in the dry. We've got the rough-in plumbing. Actually, we've got the plumbing hooked up. So we're in the process of getting the walls put up and getting electrified. So we'll have that instead of that old leaky, noisy, hot tent that we've been putting up with for 30 years up there. So we'll try to keep, I'll try to keep Danny informed. I mean, he's on the board, so he knows, and he can keep us kind of updated in his newsletter and future programs. Well, that's about all I've got on Okie-Tex. So if it's okay with Danny, I'm gonna move into something that
Sure. Yeah.
we do every year, but because of COVID and canceling the Okie-Tex, we haven't got to do this. And of course, we'd like to do this in person, but due to the COVID, we haven't had an in-person meeting to do it. So it is my pleasure to present our annual EK Owen Award from the Oklahoma City Club to, in this case, a couple of deserving members that have been longtime members of the Oklahoma City Club since 1987. Participants at the Okie-Tex Star Party, we get to see them as often as they can, coming since they live down southeast Oklahoma. But one of our recipients tonight has been a science teacher from way back in 1976 down in Kiowa, Oklahoma. She taught elementary science method classes for Southeastern Oklahoma State University also. But I know I remember my elementary school science teachers and what an impact they had on my life. And I know that she was able to captivate the interest of these children and get them involved in doing things that are hands-on in science projects. She's now retired, but she remains active in promoting astronomy, most recently visiting classes and to educate teachers about how to safely observe that great eclipse we had a couple of years ago. And some of our students have become scientists, but more just more interested in science than they had ever been before, and that's something you can keep for a lifetime. And to go right along with that, her husband Philip has also been a school teacher in McAllister. He retired from teaching in 2014 and Eastern Oklahoma State College in 2017. He was the 2002 recipient of the AOK Physics Teacher of the Year Award. Excuse me, in 2008, and he was also a finalist for the Oklahoma Teacher of the Year. A little background: I had myself, David Higgins, and Larry Beatty had an observatory near Savannah, Oklahoma, and that's how we met this great couple. And they live in Kiowa, have a cattle ranch down there, and they have Philip is was quite honored on July 14, 2020. The Habitable Exoplanet Hunting Project announced the discovery of a candidate planet orbiting the red dwarf star GJ3470. The planet will be the first total amateur discovery of a planet since William Herschel's discovery of Uranus in 1781. So, and he's a member of our club. So I want you to, Philip, if you and Karen, if you could get Karen in front of your camera and open those boxes that I had to mail to you, I will introduce our E. Ken Owen Award winners for 2020, Philip and Karen Scott. Danny, could you switch them off?
Mm-hmm. Congratulations to you both.
Well, thank you very much. This was a surprise to me.
Very much so.
So we thank you very much. Yeah, we've been involved with the club since 1987. I think is when we first became club members, and do a lot of the star parties in the years since then. And so it's been a enjoyment for both of us. We thank you very much, and for honoring us in this way.
Quite an honor. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and start my introduction on Philip's program tonight. Philip is going to talk to us about what this Habitable Exoplanet Hunting Project's about and some of the ways that they use software to look at their findings. But I'm amazed at how much effort he had to put into this, looking at the same star every night for night after night after night, and taking data from it. So, Philip, let me tell you this. Philip is also going to be a speaker at Okie-Tex, and he'll do an evening presentation and a daytime presentation. So, if there's anything that you miss on the virtual program tonight, Philip, I'm sure will cover it in his in-person. So it's my pleasure to introduce Phillip Scott on Exoplanet Hunting Project. Philip?
Well, thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here to speak with you tonight. And Mike and I have been talking about doing this hopefully at the club meeting in person for the last 2 or 3 months. And this COVID stuff's just not letting us do that. So decided to go ahead and do this virtually. As Mike mentioned, he also has me lined up to do a talk at the Okie-Tex. And what I plan to do there is focus more on how to observe exoplanets and the analysis of the data from that. And so we're going to have I think a daytime afternoon session to help people with the analysis of hopefully some observations that can be done there from Okie-Tex. So I encourage you to come and get involved in that if you can. But it's a pleasure to be here tonight to talk to you and a little bit about what's going on with exoplanets. I've actually been involved in this for a little over a year now. It was last July when I made my, not July, it was the year before anyway. We have been observing. I've been observing with a group of amateur astronomers from around the world, and it's led by Alberto Caballera, and from Spain. He put the group together and asked me to join them, and it's been quite a journey with them since. Well, in July of this year, of this past year rather, we announced a discovery of a planet, a candidate planet orbiting the star GJ 3470. It's in the constellation Cancer. It's a red dwarf, and it's 98 light years away. And right now, it's a candidate planet. We feel pretty good about the probability of it being confirmed as an actual planet, hopefully later this year. But that's if confirmed, it'll be the first totally amateur discoveries since William Herschel's discovery of Uranus back in 1781. So it'd be quite an honor if that happens. I'm just telling Mike we've got about 4 more planets we're working on, so we're trying to get some confirmations among the group on those before we present papers on those. So we have a few things working besides this one that we've already proposed. So let me get my screen showing. Let's see here. I'm a little bit new with Zoom, so bear with me a moment. Okay, is that screen showing now? Here it is.
Yep.
Okay.
All
right. So my topic here is going to be hunting exoplanets, a little bit about the history of it, and then kind of what my involvement has been with it over the past year or so, and and how I got involved with this stuff. It's been quite a journey, as I mentioned earlier. So get started here. I've been in amateur astronomy since 1964, and that's when I bought this little telescope. This is a 2.4-inch refractor, a Tesco refractor, and this is not me, it's one of my students here posed with it. But this telescope was probably one of the best buys of my life. I bought that from a friend who had no interest in astronomy. It was given to him by his grandpa. And he needed some gas for his motorcycle, so he offered to sell it to me for $12. So there it is. I still have that telescope, and I won't let go of it. It's that's how I got started. For years, I used that telescope to do my observing. And then, I don't know if David Higgins is in the crowd, but I owe him a debt of gratitude for inviting me out to look through his light bucket back in 1986. And he had a 13-inch Dob that just totally impressed me. I'd never looked through anything so big before. I got hooked on large aperture astronomy, and so it was the next year I went in partnership with them on the 24-inch. Mike's a part of that partnership now. And so that's been a lot of fun. Okay, in 2014, is when I retired. So I've been retired a little over 6 years now from teaching high school science. And at that time, I decided that I was going to build my observatory, and my wife Karen and I, we built this one in our backyard. It's a roll-off 24 by 12 building. Half of it is the control room, and that's where I'm speaking to you from now. It's nice and warm out here. And the other half has the scope. You can see a little bit of it sticking above the wall there. 6-foot walls. I built them pretty high just to kind of help with the wind problem, and it does a pretty good job, although gusts still get me occasionally. But that's where I observe from. And this is the telescope that I'm using, and I'll tell a little bit more about the details of it later. It's a Starliner telescope and mount. It's been heavily modified, and that's what I use to observe planets with now. Here's a picture I made with the computer in the control room. I use dual screens, and as you can see, there's a lot of windows open on there, so the dual screens come in really handy when I'm doing my observing. So, how has the methods for planet hunting changed over the centuries, actually? And well, here's basically the 5 methods that have been used. And I can imagine the cavemen stepping out, and noticing some of the bright objects that moved relative to the other stars. And so the first 5 planets were found visually just by watching the sky. But then the telescope came along, and we had with William Herschel, we had the discovery of the next planet. And then mathematicians got involved for the next discovery, and then a next one that got involved. We used photographic plates and a blink comparator. And now all of the planet hunting is done with digital imaging, and that's where we come in. So there's when we talk specifically about exoplanets, there's 5 ways to find an exoplanet, at least 5 ways that it's been successful so far. And the radial velocity method has been quite successful. It's using spectroscopy to measure the redshift or blue shift of a star as it wobbles due to the gravitational pull of the planets that are orbiting it. Actually, 820 planets, this as of late last year, 820 planets have been discovered using, or at least confirmed, using this method. And the transit method, which is the one we're really going to focus on tonight, is observing the drop in the amount of light of a star as a planet passes in front of it. This method is, can be used by amateur astronomers, and that's what I use. It's been by far the most successful method, and over 3,000 planets have been found using this technique. The number 3, the direct imaging, is actually directly imaging the planets. They have to use some, pretty good little tricks to do that, but it's been somewhat successful. 51 planets were found using this method. And then the gravitational micro-lensing has been more successful than you might think. It's and I don't know too much about this one other than it's a massive foreground object, magnifies the objects that are directly behind it. And using these, they've been able to find some, some exoplanets using that method. Excuse me, 98, I'm looking at my numbers here. 98 planets have been confirmed using this technique, which is far more than, I was kind of surprised. And another successful method, barely, is astrometry. And that's actually not using spectroscopy, but actually using the telescope to look at the movement of a star back and forth due to the wobble. And, that's, to me, that's a really tough way to do it because the stars are so far away. Watching a little bit of wobble would be extremely tough. Yet 1 planet has been confirmed using this technique. Well, as I mentioned, the first new planet discovered was Uranus in 1781. And William Herschel, he was a music teacher by profession, an amateur astronomer by hobby. And so this planet is credited to an amateur astronomer. What's kind of interesting is if you check the journals of William Herschel's, he went for nearly a year without even suspecting that it might be a planet, or maybe he suspected, but he didn't mention it in his journal till about a year later. He thought it might have been a comet or something like that. And so after a year, he mentions the possibility that it could be a planet. he continues to watch it, and finally, after about 18 months, he notes in his journal and referring to it as my planet. So he finally decided it had to be a planet. And of course, he made history when he made that announcement. Well, the next planet I mentioned was made by or found by mathematicians, and the one that gets the credit for that is Urbain Le Verrier. He actually was watching the motions of Uranus and noting the irregularities in its orbit. And using math, he calculated where a planet might be that would cause this. He took his information to the Berlin Observatory, and there, within a matter of minutes, they found his planet within a very close distance to where he indicated. And so Urbain Le Verrier is credited with the discovery of Neptune. The next one was Clyde Tombaugh in 1930. Now, he's my favorite because I actually got to meet him, as did some of the other members of the club. And actually he spoke to the 1987 Texas Star Party, and he came out on the field and joined some of us out on the field afterwards, and we had a blast hearing his stories. But Clyde Tombaugh used a method of taking photographic plates several days apart of the same field of stars, and then blinking them in a machine called the blink comparator. And it was just, if you can imagine looking through a pair of binoculars at two pictures that are lined up just right, where the stars don't move when you blink from one side to the other. The only thing that moves is the object that moves will appear to jump back and forth. And I fixed up an example of that for my students when I was teaching astronomy. Back in, I think it was 2008, I took these plates or images, digital images, and this is one of my images that I took of the field that Pluto was supposed to be in. Now, Pluto is not so obvious in here, and so the question is, which one of those starlight objects is Pluto? Well, a couple of days later, we took another image. And if you were looking in the right place, you might have saw one object move. So this is the second image, looks much the same as the first. So in order to blink these, we need to jump back and forth. And if you look near the center of the image, now you can see it. That was Pluto. This is about a 2 or 3 day motion for it within that field. And so that's the method that Clyde Tombaugh used to find Pluto. So I've always been fascinated with his technique. Well, the first exoplanet was Pegasi 51b, found by Michel Mayor in 1995. And so this was exoplanet number, the very first one. And just like the illustration right here, the gravitational pull of that planet causes that star to wobble around some, center of motion. And excuse me. And when Michel first, he used a method called radial velocity. It's using spectroscopy to measure the redshift of the star. Remember, he could not see the planet, but he could see the star moving as it moved away from him and towards him. And so he would see a red shift and a blue shift, and depending where the star was, it'd be moving towards him or away from him at some speed. Now, it took years to get the spectrometers with enough precision to be able to measure those slow motions. And they actually, he and Jeff Marcy in California, they both came up with techniques to improve the accuracy to where they could measure redshift or blue shift down to the speed of a walking man. And this was enough to verify many of these exoplanets that are causing star wobble. So in 4 years later, we had the first transit discovery. Now, Mayor and Marcy both get credit for this one, HD 209458b. This is a star in Pegasus, and this illustration, shows how the planet moves in front of the star, blocking a little bit of its light. Now, believe it or not, the cameras that we use today, all you astrophotographers out there, your cameras can measure very precisely the amount of light that star receives from that star, and in this case, the planet was blocking about 2% of the light of that star. And so if we can graph that, if we take images all night long and then graph those star brightnesses along with some comparison stars, we see a graph illustrated there below that shows a baseline on both sides, the brightness of the star, and then in the middle we see a reduction in that light that's caused by this transit. And so this method has been extremely successful. I typically can measure depths in the planets that I'm observing now down to about 0.1%. So we're getting down pretty small. That starts getting pretty tough. The 1% and 2% ones they're easy. For at least with this 12.5 inch. And that's one of the fun things about exoplanet observing is, is going for these very shallow transits and pulling them out of all of the noisy data. And that's quite a thrill when that happens. Okay, so in just a little over 2 years ago, we had the first successful detection with amateur equipment, and KPS-1b. I'm not sure where that star is, but and I don't even know his name. But it was the first amateur detection of but he was part of a pro-am project. He did not do his own data reduction. There's people at the Ural State Technical University in Russia that he was working with. They reduced the data and actually discovered the planet orbiting this star that you see in this image here. But the important thing is it was an amateur that took this picture, even though he did not actually analyze it. So a little bit about me now, how I got involved. Well, I'm jumping the gun here. Here's a chart of exoplanet discoveries by year. The different colors represent the different methods. The red is the radial velocity method. The green is the one that really stands out, and those are transit discoveries. And what really stands out is there was 2 years there we had a tremendous number of confirmations, and this was because these were detections by the Kepler Space Telescope, and they dumped this information in large amounts, especially in those 2 years, and so there were a lot of confirmations in those years from the Kepler data. That's where we get most of our exoplanet detections now is through space telescopes. Okay, now to me, how I got involved was my wife Karen and we went to an astronomy camp for educators in Tucson in the year 2000. And that was run by Dr. Don McCarthy. He was a lead optician on the Large Binocular Telescope. And so a very knowledgeable person that was leading the camp. And he did several talks with us. And one of his talks was about the exoplanet discoveries up to that time. And I think it was a little over 100 at that time. But just the year before, we'd had that first transit discovery. And he impressed me when he told us that he thought it was very possible for amateurs to be able to get involved in these planet detections. if not discovery, at least in conformations. And so that made an impression on me. And from that point, I started paying attention, started reading up on it. And by the time I retired in 2014, I had already made up my mind that that's what I was going to do in retirement. So when I retired, I started preparing in earnest. In fact, before I retired, I started having my telescope worked on in anticipation of doing what I'm doing now. And so here's the telescope that I had this at Okie Tex back in, I think that was 2014 when I took the scope out there. Actually, it was 2015, excuse me. And I'd already had the mount worked on at that time. I had seriously upgraded the mount. And I believe maybe then I'd already had the optics worked over also. And as a result, here was my first exoplanet detection in August 5th. Wasn't the first one. It was close to the first. But this was Qatar 1B. And this one is, it's about a 2.5% dip on that one. So that was a pretty easy one. And you see from my error bars there wasn't a whole lot of error in it. So I was pretty proud of that one. And so that's what I started doing was detecting these known exoplanets and kind of, chewing on those for a while before I got involved in the looking for new planets. Well, that came around pretty quick when Alberto Caballero of the Exoplanets channel, he has a pretty big YouTube, presence there on, and he does a lot of YouTubes on interstellar travel and radio signals and exoplanet detections. And he put together a worldwide group of astronomers. At the time I joined, he had close to 30 astronomers involved, all amateurs. And these guys, they were scattered all over the world. They're in Europe, they're in Asia. We have, of course, across the U.S. There's just actually not that many of us in the U.S. We have some in South America, Australia. We have a couple down there. We have a few people in China. And so there's people all over that have been involved. Now, most of them are, they're working or, doing other things. And so they have limited time to devote to this. Whereas when I got involved, I was retired. And so, my wife will tell you, I practically lived out here at the observatory for a long time till I got it set up remotely. And so he asked me to join the group, and I'd only been detecting exoplanets for less than 2 months. And I thought, well, I'm not really that experienced. But then again, I thought, well, how better to learn than to just jump in with both feet? So I did, and it has paid off. So what's the purpose of our group? Well, the Habitable Exoplanet Hunting Project is a proposed project to enable amateurs to discover more potentially habitable exoplanets, specifically around non-flare G-like stars, K-type stars, and red dwarfs within 100 light years. We specifically chose non-flare because we want to find planets around stars that could possibly harbor life. And flaring stars are not likely to do that. So also we limited to within 100 light years. That makes it a little easier for our amateur equipment to detect the size planets that we're interested in. And we've got our first detection now, our first, at least our first planet that we've proposed, 3470C. It is in the habitable zone of its planet. The problem with it is its Saturn size, and which is So it's not likely to harbor life, but who knows, maybe a moon orbiting that planet could. We don't know. But the other thing is, if you think about if we get, interstellar travel developed, which stars are we most likely to visit first? Well, it's going to be the close ones. And so these might be some that could potentially be candidates for interstellar trips. Okay, so when I got started with the Exoplanet project, I kind of jumped into it with both feet. I literally have been observing practically every single clear night. And so I've been doing this for almost a year and a half now. I haven't added up the number of hours I put in on this, but it's way up in the hundreds of hours. Fortunate for me, I'm 70 years old now, so I need my sleep, don't I, Karen? And so I set it up to where I can do a lot of this remotely now, and I can actually let the telescope do the work, and I go to bed and go to sleep until the alarm goes off. And if it loses a guide star or something, it lets me know. It'll blast me out of bed, and I can take care of the problem. But the candidate that we announced in July of last year, the first detection was on the 27th of February. Let me show you that graph. Here it is. So the 27th of February, I got this one. After we analyzed it and got the proper fits on the line, this red line is what you're looking at. And we can see that the transit starts here and it dips down. In this case, it's about, if I look at the scale, it's about 0.5%. And the duration of this transit was just over 1 hour. I think 1 hour and 2 minutes, something like that. And so then that was a big deal when I found this. And then on May the 3rd, I got this one. Here's another one that, again, is 0.5% in depth. And it was about 1 hour and 3 minutes in duration. That's a really close match. So if we go back and if you do the calendar and count, there's 66 days between those two dates. Well, the planet was going out of season. Just like when constellations go out of season, you have to wait till next season to observe them. Well, this planet went out of season so I knew it was 66 days later, it was not going to be visible. So I got to looking at my data, and by golly, 66 days earlier, I had an observation, but I didn't notice anything in that one. So I went back and reanalyzed it, and here's what I came up with. I got another hit. And so this one was about 0.7 in depth, and it was, I think, 58 minutes in duration. That's really close, because of errors, it's just a few minutes less in duration, but that's not a big deal when we're talking about the errors that we're having to overcome here. So it looked like we had a good match here for 3 hits. So we wrote our paper and submitted based on those 3 observations. Okay, this year, the weather hasn't been very good to me here lately, and in fact the first observation of this 66-day orbit comes up next week early, and if you've looked at the weather reports for southeast Oklahoma, it's not likely to happen, so I'll probably have to wait another 66 days, but hopefully one of the observers from elsewhere will be able to pick this up. We're looking for more confirmations in addition to the professional confirmation that we're looking for. All right, what did I have to do to get my telescope ready to do these observations? Well, there's a number of things. I mentioned earlier that I've got an old Starliner telescope. It's a 12.5 inch Starliner mount with 2-inch shafts. And I actually bought this thing from Larry Beatty. He had it originally. So I knew I was going to have to do a lot of work on it. The drive on it was horrible. In fact, it had sleeves in the deck shaft instead of bearings, and it just wasn't set up for precision tracking. I took it to a machinist in Fort Worth. It's, Leonard, forgot his last name now, but it was he modifies mounts and builds new mounts, and actually he's retired now. But I took this mount down to him, and he machined these 12-inch drive gears for both shafts, and we added bearings to that declination axis, and then the next thing we did was we machined out a disc for a Renishaw encoder and encoder tape. That's this right here. That's a gold tape. If you buy one new, you find out, yeah, it really is gold, at least a gold coating. I got lucky and found this one on eBay for $45, so that was a steal. But what this does, it gives me closed loop periodic error correction. This sensor picks up almost 500,000 ticks per revolution. That's 3 ticks per second in a 24-hour day. And so by watching the timing on these ticks, it makes automatic adjustments for periodic error correction. So I don't have to do a thing. It just does it all for me, and it does it very precisely. I'm glad I went that route on my periodic error correction. And then the next thing I did, we put, for the drives on it, we put the sidereal technology servo motors on it, and the software to run that's the little white square over here at the side. And don't let the size fool you. There's lots of tabs on here, and there's lots of options. It's a very powerful telescope drive system. If you're building one from scratch, I recommend it. It's worked out really well for me, and it'll do everything except make the coffee. And the red screen is my camera control software, and I've switched over to one that's developed by a man in Austria, and it's BIG control. So it's SBIG control, and that one it works extremely well for what I'm doing. Okay, the telescope itself, did a couple of modifications on it. First of all, I added a moonlight filter so I can do my focusing remotely, and they're not cheap, but they work really well. I use an ST8 camera, and I bought this one used from David Higgins, and it does what I need it to do, does it really well. The mirror had a problem. I had pretty soft images originally. It was a Pyrex glass, and I thought, well, it should be a good mirror. It just needs a little tender loving care. I sent it out to California to Optic Wave Labs, and they do a free test on mirrors. And as I expected, they contacted me and said, this mirror needs some help. It needed some serious help. And so I was expecting that, and I told them, you go ahead and do whatever you need to do to make it a really good mirror. And they did. I don't know if you're familiar with the numbers on these. The strial ratio, 1 is perfect. This one is a 0.987. And that number compared to what it was originally, and I've forgotten what it was, but it wasn't very good. This one looked really good. So I got the mirror back, put it in the scope, and sure enough, I had really sharp images. So I love it. Okay, so if you're interested in doing some exoplanet observing, many of you astrophotographers out there, you have the skills that you need to do the observations. And so that's maybe the easy part. It was for me. The hard part is the analysis. And but even after I got a handle on that, it's now a cinch for me. But the preparation involves first columnation, and that's important whether you're doing astrophotography or if you're doing exoplanet hunting. The importance of collimating and polar alignment. If with a good polar alignment, you can photograph the same object all night long and not have to worry about the field rotation, and that's important because you like all your stars, including the comparison stars, if possible, to stay on the same pixels all night long. The next thing is you need to select your target star. Now there's several sites you could go to find an exoplanet, a known exoplanet to observe. My preference is the one that's I use through the Swarthmore College website. And if you'll just do a Google search for exoplanet transit predictions, this will come up. And I guess I like simple things that have pictures. And the pictures I'm talking about are they give you these little illustrations of what to expect in the transit. So you can compare them this way. If I was starting for my first transit, I would not pick this first one. In fact, I'm experienced. I still would not pick this first one. That's a really shallow transit. This next one is, let's see, that's about 0.2%. No, it's about a 2%, excuse me, 2%. So that's a fairly deep transit. You could probably do this one with a 4-inch refractor. And so that's the one like that's what I would pick. And they give you all the necessary numbers. It gives you the coordinates right here. It'll tell you how long to expect it to be and what time the planet will ingress and what time it will egress or enter and leave the star. And what time mid-transit will be, how long the transit will last, what the local time as well as the Julian date time, the magnitude of the target star. So it gives you a lot of good information, and it'll actually also give you some charts, but I don't like their charts. I prefer to go to the AAVSO site, and they have something called a Variable Star Plotter, or VSP, and let me bring it up. And you can put the coordinates in that you got from the previous slide, and it will generate a chart for you with your target in the center. That's the one in the crosshair here. This is GJ3470, the one that I found the candidate planet around last July that we proposed. And there's, and what we're going to do is when I get my, when I analyze my frames, I'll designate a target star, and then I'll pick several comparison stars. I like to use a lot of comparison stars because you never know when a comparison star may not be a good one, might be a variable or some other problem. And so pick several so that you have some good ones to select from when you do analysis. The other thing is, to become familiar with your Astro Image J software or your preferred analysis software. I use Astro Image J, and I strongly recommend it. And so some imaging tips. I can't say enough about polar alignment. That's really important. Your goal is to keep the stars centered on the pixels, and in order to do that, you need a good alignment and you need a good guide camera. Now, this slide shows the graph of my guiding, and in this program, green is good. If it starts getting a little too wild, it turns to orange or yellow-orange, and if it gets really bad, it goes red. Now, granted, this particular screenshot, that was on a night of very good seeing. I had very little movement in the atmosphere, so I had really good guiding that night. It's not always this good. A lot of times I'll have some yellow spikes in there, and that's just a little over 1 pixel of motion. And so that's what I like to keep it, as good guiding as you can possibly get. But that doesn't mean that if your guiding is poor that you can't still get usable data. I do frequently. The piggyback guiders, some people may use those, and they're probably all right on, like on my refractor, my little refractor. I'm going to try it with it. Probably work fine on it, but on a reflector, if you're guiding all night on the same star, you're probably going to see a lot of movement from flexure, and I did. And so I do not use the piggyback guider. I use the self-guiding camera, use the guiding chip on the ST8 camera that I use. Finally, when you're through, do all your calibration frames, and that'll help you out too, because if a star moves a little bit and happens to move over a dust ring, that could really throw off your analysis. Okay, so here's how I like to set up my stars. This is a screenshot of one of my images. This is, I forget which star this was. It's not 3470. But I like to put my star dead center in the crosshair if possible, and then I keep it there all night. And of course, even if I have to do a meridian flip, which, if I'm going all night, I probably will do a meridian flip at some point, I'll still try to keep the target star on the same pixels. Of course, the comparison stars are going to change, but once you've changed, if you're not rotating, then they'll stay on the same pixel the rest of the night. So exposure times, you have to think about that when you get started. As you rise in the atmosphere, stars get brighter. So you have to take that into consideration. You want to plan your exposures so that your counts on your camera are probably about mid-range. The counts on mine, it goes up to about 65,000 approximately. And so I try to shoot for keeping my counts down around 30 or 35,000 counts. And for a 12th magnitude target, I'll shoot 60 seconds, and I rarely exceed 35,000 counts. That keeps it in the most linear range of your camera, and you don't have to worry about oversaturating. And I shoot the same star for months, and and that's what I'm doing now. I'm shooting 3470. I did it last year, and I'm doing it again this year to try to. And I have been catching some other transits, not the one I really want just yet, but it's not due yet. But at 60 seconds, I usually get about 400 frames in an all-night session. If I'm shooting 30 seconds, I'll get about 800 images. Well, obviously, you need a good big hard drive. My computer has a terabyte hard drive, and I'm about 2/3 full on it. So I'm going to have to start thinking about where I'm going to dump this data. I don't want to just delete it. I want to keep it. But I'm going to have to make some space at some point. So I'll probably do an external drive to do that. All right, getting close here. Astro Image J, a little bit about it. I'm not going to go into detail because it is a very complex program. It took me a good while to learn it. But there are some good guides out there, some good tutorials. And I'm going to be talking more specifically about that at Okie-Tex this fall. And let's keep our fingers crossed that Okie-Tex will be able to occur. And but I found the best help you can get for the Astro Image J is to go onto the AAVSO site. And Dennis Conti is the Exoplanet Observing Chairman on that AAVSO site. He wrote a practical guide and it's an excellent guide. That's a good place to start. He simplified it as much as he dared. And but one of the things I really like is he provides some sample data, and he guides you through the analysis of WASP-12, which is an I've forgotten where that one is, but it's I'll show you an image of it here in a moment. It's one that the book guides you through step by step, and so that's a good way to learn the program. There's also several good video tutorials on YouTube, and the thing I like about Astro Image J, once you learn it, it will do all of your processing. It'll do all of your plate solving. It'll add the necessary image header information to all your images. It will graph your data, and it will help you with a little help from you. It will analyze your data. But I'll throw this little warning out there. It is a steep learning curve. But if you want to get involved in planet hunting and be serious about it, this is the go-to software to use, Astro Image J. It is a free download. It's an open source program that's it's extremely good. It's just great. Now here's an example of one of the screenshots. This is one of the images that's been calibrated. And you'll pull the first image up, and you'll select your target star and your comparison stars, and then you have the option when you do the analysis to deselect any bad comparison stars. And occasionally I do. In fact, frequently I will deselect one or two, sometimes more of those comparison stars. And the program will tell you whether it's a good one or not. You have to learn how to read the numbers. So I will be going over some on Astro Image J at the Okie-Tex this fall. I'll be doing an afternoon session, and those that want to take some data, as I said, that's the easy part for astrophotographers. I will help guide you through the analysis of that at Okie-Tex. Hopefully we'll have some good weather and get some good data down there to play with at this session. Okay, there's the WASP 12 I was telling you about. This is the one that is giving you sample data of, and it'll guide you through the analysis of that. This was not taken with my scope for sure. The little bitty error bars on this must have been a 36-inch scope or a 48-inch scope. I don't know, it's a big one, because that's really small error bars on that one. That's okay, it's a good one to use as a sample. Okay, I'm at the end now. What I want to do is I've got a 6-minute video here that will summarize the discovery of GJ3470C, and then following that, I'll put up my credit screen, and I will be able to take questions then. So I'll be getting your questions ready. You hearing me? I think that was me. I lost it again, didn't I? Okay. You hearing me? Okay. Let me bring up some pictures here. Okay. I guess we can just leave that screen up, can't we? Are we all right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't know how many you got out there, but if anybody has any questions for me, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Yeah. We've got a we've got a couple of questions and comments from the chat, and then some from me as well. So first we have a question from Andy who asks about your um, transit of Pluto slide, or discovery of Pluto slide. Uh, if we want to do a time lapse of the movement of Pluto, like he did, what kind of equipment do you need to do that sort of thing? Like what focal length, telescope, camera equipment? What do you need to do stuff like that?
Well, I've done that a couple of times, and actually the first time I did it was a few years before that one that you saw on the slideshow here. But I did the first one with I'm trying to remember. I did that with an ST6 on on the 24-inch telescope. It was a 24-inch f4 with an ST6. That's yeah, that's a pretty small field of view, and I successfully did that using that telescope. Didn't have very good drive on it. I mean, it wasn't real precise, but I think it was just maybe a 30-second image each one, and did those. I think that first one I did was about 2 days apart. And then the one you saw on the slides here was that one I did from the high school where I taught astronomy at McAllister High School, and while there I had a observatory built. I designed and oversaw the building of that with a big grant that I got, and we had a Meade 12-inch, an LX200 12-inch. And we had an ST9 camera that we were using on that one, and I think those images were 3 days apart. but that was with and that was at f10 on an LX 200 12-inch. And again, I think it was about a 30-second exposure each on each one of those. So it was, you don't need obviously, you didn't see a whole lot of movement in 3 days there at f10 on that 12-inch. And so I'm not sure what size you could go up to or down, and how you might have to, if you had if you had a lot lower or slower focal length, you might have to spread the days out a little bit more between the two plates. But you could take several images and find the two that work out best for doing that. But it was a good example to show my students that when I talked about Clyde Tombaugh discovering Pluto and how he did it, when I showed them that those images and blinked those back and forth, then they understood. Yeah, here's why. And it's kind of interesting. It makes it a lot easier to see an unknown planet that's moving across your field when you can blink it like that. When Clyde Tombaugh did his talk, I've forgotten the numbers, but he said he dreaded going through the Milky Way, doing plates in the Milky Way, because there's so many stars. And but he said that I forget how many million stars he said there were in those plates that he took. And then he followed that up with a statement and said, and I looked at each and every one of them. So
Wow.
it was a long, a really long process that he went through. It took him several months to find Pluto that way.
Wow. Andy says that if we are understanding you right, then we probably could use our 14-inch that's out at Cheddar Ranch to do things like that.
Certainly. What's the focal length on that? Do you know? Is that an F10?
It's a C14. Someone in chat will tell me.
You have a
sure.
focal reducer on it, or is it about F10?
These are good questions that I'm hoping someone in chat
that would probably
knows
the
the answer
the
to.
12-inch Meade that I used was it was at F10, and it was a 12-inch, so it would probably be very comparable. And again, I did those. I think they were 3 days apart, and worked out really well. So it's a good, it'd be, if you could do that with your telescope out there and get those images to blink, that'd be a good teaching tool for, if somebody's interested in how Tombaugh discovered Pluto.
Oh, great. Yeah, well, that sounds really cool. And I'm seeing that we do have a focal reducer out there, so I'm sure we could get that to work.
Yeah, well, if you have a focal reducer on it, you might need to spread the images out, say, 4 or 5 days apart. Might give you, depending on how much movement you wanted for your target planet that you're, for Pluto.
If I know Andy, I believe that he's making plans to stay out there for a month or so and take
I would recommend
take
just
3,000 photos it was a night. So
yeah. Well, I just take the same field for several days or several nights in a row, and then he could pick the 2 or 3 that or all of them if he wanted to use.
I've got a comment from Chris here, who early on in your presentation, when you were speaking about the discovery of your planet that was the size of Saturn, but you were hoping that there could be a habitable moon or orbiting it. Chris made the comment that a lot of people are unaware that discovering moons around exoplanets has become an emerging field of research,
Yes.
and that there have been a couple of candidates found for that. Do you have any insight as to what that process is like, or how you feel about
Uh,
how that's going? Or
No, not really. I have my suspicions that that's probably going to have to be done with the really large professional observatories, or possibly something like Hubble, uh, or the upcoming James Webb Telescope. That'd be a good project for it, and it's going to be you're going to need a lot more resolution than what I have in a typical amateur scope. Uh, to see a moon, unless it's a huge moon, if we're talking one, a third the size of the planet, just kind of like, Pluto has, maybe something like that'd be possible, but I just don't see that as being doable in the near future on amateur equipment.
You had mentioned that that since you've retired, that you've been out about every night doing this sort of thing.
Hmm.
If there's someone like me who can't get out e- e- every night to do this, what could I do, or what could the I don't know if average person that's not retired, that doesn't
Okay.
have.
Yeah, I can address that. Right now, I mentioned early on that it's not something we've announced yet or anything, but I have some good prospects going on at least four other possible planets. Three of them at around 3470, and another one around 9827, which is one I observe in the off season, basically in the fall. And right now, I have predictions of when these planets should, show up again. These are planets that I have at least two, in most cases three, good transits on, and been able to establish a pretty good orbit. And of course, they're possibles, and we want to get our own confirmation before we submit a paper on them. But this is something that people, others in the group could help with. Obviously, especially here in Oklahoma, there's nights when I have clouds and maybe Oklahoma City is clear,
Mhm.
or Cheddar Ranch is clear. And if I had more, and we do need more observers. And so if I had some guys, even guys within our club, or others that you might know of that want to do this, we could get you involved in looking on specific nights. That's for these planets. And I have right now, I've got a list of about on my calendar. I've probably got at least 20 different nights earmarked on my calendar that I need to be watching for a very good possibility of a reappearance of a transit. And and even if even if several of them are the same planet, so be it. It's just more confirmation that we can get, and the more the better. And so we're just building a case for these planets right now. 3470C, the one we did the paper on, we only have those three transits. They line up really well, and they're very, very similar transits. So we feel very good about it. And so we're expecting professional confirmation, hopefully this summer. But it would be nice to get our own confirmation, some further hits later this summer. So we're watching for it. But I've got the proposed dates for those. I don't have it in front of me, but there's specific dates that we could be observing those. So, and really, if there's some astrophotographers out there that want to do some of this and help with this, I can get the coordinates to you. I can help you. All you need to do right now is just get the data. If you need help with the analysis, hey, I can do that. And
Yeah.
so if somebody, and if you're already doing astrophotography, you've got it pretty well licked. it's just like doing astrophotography, except you're just doing a star all night long. And in this case, 1 minute exposures, and probably 400 exposures in a full night. And then it's just a matter of, how. Now, what I do is I upload my data to Google Drive, and I've almost filled up 100 gigabytes on it. And these are just the significant observations that I've uploaded to that. But that data is available for others on our team they can download it and they can do their own analysis of it. So we all do that with each other's work.
Okay. Well, so if somebody in the club is interested in doing that, then they can, I guess they can email me or they can email you, and then I can hook you guys together.
And in fact, my email is listed there at the bottom of that screen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's it's phillip.scott with no vowels at gmail.com. And so, yeah, if you're interested in helping out with that, email me, and I will help you get set up for it. I can, in fact, I can send you the files, where to get, the information that you need. You'll need a finder chart. You can get that off AAVSO, or I could send a file to you with that chart. There's my dates that I've come up with. I can pass those along to you, and you can just plan a full night, and I can give you estimate the times that the transit will be up or the star will be up, so you can shoot it. And we just shoot it all night long for as long as we can, while it's up, till it starts getting daylight. Now, one thing it's if you've got a fork mount, you can shoot all night long with no meridian flip. That's the advantage of a fork mount. So nothing moves. If you're using a Newtonian mount, then a German equatorial mount, then you're going to have to do a meridian flip when you reach the meridian, and so you'll have to be there to do that. But that's about the only time I have to do any intervention with my telescope is when I do a meridian flip.
In all these nights of doing this, do you ever see like an asteroid by accident or some other cosmic thing that you weren't intending on seeing?
Yeah, but I haven't bothered with them. I see stuff. It's probably most of them are satellites that I see. In my images, but occasionally I suspect as maybe an asteroid because I'm what I'm observing right now is just 15 degrees off of the celestial equator, and so that's in an area where kind of along the not far from the orbital plane of our planets, and so I occasionally some of those are maybe I'll see a streak that might be a satellite that's in geostationary orbit, and they'll appear to streak across the image, and I'm sure some of them may have been those, but I haven't bothered to try to analyze any of those.
Okay. Any other questions? So what can you? So you mentioned that that the planet was in the habitable zone, but it was the size of Saturn. What all can you tell about an exoplanet from the techniques that you're using?
Okay, if you notice those curves that I showed, they all had a slope going into and coming out of the transit. And So that tells us a little bit about the size of the planet as compared to the size of the star. That steepness of that curve does. Also, the depth of the curve tells us, gives us, like the ones that we turned in our paper was about uh, a little over 0.5% in depth. And that's what the size of the planet was calculated from. And personally, I think the planet's a little smaller than what we came up with. But Alberto, the leader of our group, the guy in Spain, he's really the mathematician of the group, and he felt strongly that it was more Saturn size, and so we went with that. I conceded, and although I still feel like it probably going to end up being a little smaller than what we originally said. Also, from the duration, we get a little bit of an idea about the distance of its orbit, but more of that comes from the period of the orbit. At 66 days, it puts it pretty well smack dab, just a little bit beyond the center of what we think the habitable zone is. And now I'm thinking it might end up being a 33-day orbit. And so that's still out there. We don't know yet. And if it is, it'll be on the hot side of the habitable zone. But I'm not too worried about it. Being the size of Saturn or even Uranus, it's very unlikely to harbor any life anyway. The atmosphere is going to be so thick and wrong kind of gases. And they say it's just not a good scenario for development of life on a planet that size.
Okay, well, I think that's all of our questions. So thank you so much for speaking to us tonight. It was super interesting, and congratulations on your discovery and on the EKOing.
Thank you very much.
To you, and to Karen.
Thank you too.
Yeah.
Karen says thanks also. I don't know if you heard her.
Yeah.
I was really surprised.
Well,
Yeah.
much deserved. So, I guess that we will hopefully see the two of you at Okitex.
Well, we plan on being there. I just hope the COVID lets us.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank y'all for joining us, and yeah.
Yep. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having us here tonight. And yeah, if anybody's interested in helping out with our project, just give me an email, and we'll get you more information.
Great.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Yeah. So thank you again to Philip and to Karen and to Mike Dennis for that introduction and for that presentation of the award. I've got some things to go through here. I've noticed a few questions in chat, and I got an email at least one email that is along the lines of, "Okay, I've joined the club, so what's next?" So I'm gonna show you a few things here. What you want to do, if you can, pull this up here. Is check out our website at okcastroclub.com. If you go into our discussion board here and you create an account and you sign in here, this is where our discussions go on, and it's also where we make our plans to go out to Cheddar Ranch for our member night. So if you are interested in going out to Cheddar Ranch, then be sure to sign up for that. Log in, say if I find the discussion about the Cheddar Ranch member nights. They make a new one for each event. So the one for tomorrow night is going to be canceled because it's going to be too cold and gross. But we will already be planning for the next one. So post in that one that, hey, I'm a new member. I want to go out. I want to see the place, and we can provide you an escort, or we can meet up with you, or give you all sorts of advice there. The discussion board is also a great place to ask about equipment, or to share photos, or to ask about anything pretty much. Because of the ongoing pandemic and so forth, we aren't doing much in the way of public events right now outside of Cheddar Ranch. Going out to Cheddar Ranch is great though, because it's got a lot of built-in social distancing. The pads that you can set up on are far apart, so it's easy to set up and still be away from people, and it is pretty windy out there too. You heard Mike and Philip and me talk about the Okie-Tex Star Party. If you are interested more about that, that is at okie-tex.com. We are one of, if not the best star parties, at least in North America, according to Astronomy magazine. In my opinion, it is the best in the world. It is on October 1st of this year, and lasts through the 9th. You don't have to come for the whole thing. You just pick and choose the days that you want to be there, and you just pay for those. There is catered food, there's Wi-Fi, there's bathrooms, showers, great speakers like Philip. It's some of the darkest skies that you will ever see. So if you are interested in that, be sure to come out and check that out. I saw that we got a couple of new memberships through the website. If you want to do that, then you can go to okie-tex.org/shop. We kind of had to figure out a new way to do our memberships, since we can't do meetings, and we had a shop that was set up for Okie-Tex, so you can go there to do that. Back on our main site, be sure to check out our newsletter. Each month, right before the meeting, I put up a newsletter that is full of news about the club, some pictures, a link to our past and present club meetings. We've got a video from our president, and then just all sorts of cool stuff to see and learn, including a what's in the sky tonight kind of session. So if you are new and you are looking for something to do or something to see, then be sure to check those sites out. I think that is it for us. If there is something else that I forgot to say or that you want to know about, please let me know. I either right now or afterwards. You can email me at editor@okcastroclub.com because my official spot on the board is making that newsletter that you just saw, and live streaming is something that we're doing because we have to right now. Yeah, so I'll just give it a minute or two to see if there are questions or comments here. If I missed anything, I'm going to put my information in the chat. Oh, if you want to get club merchandise, then you can contact Andy, who you have seen in chat. If you want to get some merch, then you can email merch@okcastroclub.com. That goes to Andy. We also have a Redbubble shop, which I don't have pulled up here, but I can show you that. So if you are interested in getting our logo or the logo for Okitex on something like a mask or a coffee mug or something that we don't have in stock, then you can do that from here. If you click on that shop all that products, then you can get our logo on all sorts of stuff. The masks are pretty cool, I gotta say. So okay, well, I think that does it for us. Thank you all for continuing to come to these and for sticking with us through these weird times. I hope you all are doing well and staying safe, and now staying warm, since I saw the forecast is -6 or something. Like that's not okay. So I don't know what we're going to do for March. We're probably going to be back here where I will be talking to you through a camera, but we will let you know. So until next time, guys, stay safe, stay warm, see some clear skies, and if you see something cool or you want to know something cool, then be sure to get in touch with us. So I will see you next month.